No sound.
No sound.
Never mind.
Turn it off.
And
Great, and we are back. This is This Normal, brought to you by the Center for Positive Sexuality and Exquisite Restricted Corsets. And I'm Emily, and we have Skye filling in for Simone. And we have the wonderful Karen Tate, and we've been discussing the Divine Feminine. You can go to her website, karentate.com, and see links to all of the things, including her books and such. And she does a radio show on blogtalkradio.com, Voices of the Sacred Feminine. And when do you do your show?
It's usually on Wednesday nights at 6 o'clock Pacific, but you can always catch it from the archives.
Okay.
And there's about 3 years of archives between Blog Talk and my actual website. A lot of great guests.
And it's an audio radio program. It's not video.
Yeah, audio.
Okay. Well, you guys should check that out if you're enjoying this. And
give me the website again. It's on your website.
yes, it's on karentate.com. You can also go to blogtalkradio.com/Voices of the Sacred Feminine. So, and of course, we always talk when we take that little break, and then we forget about what we talked about. But we'll try to come back to that. We were talking about, Skye had brought up discussing how women in ancient Egypt, they created the first tampons so that women could still go out working in the fields even when they were menstruating. And they were very uncomfortable tampons because they were created with a stick and papyrus. So, but, maybe they boiled the papyrus so that it wasn't so stiff. Hopefully. You never know.
Well, and women in ancient Egypt had more rights than most women in the ancient world, too. So.
Especially with the pharaoh Cleopatra, I believe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's interesting, goddess theology, this is reminding me of, I have a YouTube clip out there, a presentation that I gave for the American Academy of Religion about sacred feminine for a sustainable future. And one of the things I was talking about was how we can actually take goddess theology, THEA, instead of, and use that to have a more sustainable world. And one of the things I was talking about was using the goddess Isis, for instance. You see on temple walls, it is, you'll see Isis handing a pharaoh Ma'at. Well, that's another goddess, Ma'at. But what's happening is, it is through the power of Isis, the feminine face of God, that the pharaoh gets the right to rule the people. And when she hands him Ma'at, the goddess Ma'at, well, that's truth and justice. She's saying, I give you the right to rule, but you rule using truth and justice. So there's just one little smidgen, of how you can use the ideals of goddess theology for a better world. And there are other examples, like that too. For instance, Lady Libertas in Rome. The Romans deified virtues like liberty and justice, and so they actually had Lady Libertas on the Palatine Hill. And Our Lady Libertas is the Statue of Liberty, the political goddess. Mm-hmm. And Tiananmen Square, they actually took the image of the Statue of Liberty, and the people, as they were fighting against the Chinese government, well, they were holding her effigy in front of them. Code Pink used the Statue of Liberty, as a symbol to fire George Bush. They had these wonderful posters, and I still have one. You saw the Statue of Liberty wearing a pink slip, and then it was about firing George Bush. They were giving him a pink slip saying, "We fire you," but they used the, Lady Liberty as the symbol. There are other things like Demeter and Persephone, for instance. I teach a course called Cakes for the Queen of Heaven, which is a wonderful curriculum that has stood the test of time that the Unitarian Universalist women put together that explains all of this, And they talk about Demeter and Persephone perpetuate the idea of healthy relationships between mothers and daughters. Well, we're all mothers and daughters, so if you just extrapolate that a bit, goddess theology is saying, women, get along, have healthy relationships among yourselves rather than what a lot of us, I'm sure, experience sometimes. The Inuit goddess Sedna up in the waters of Newfoundland and Canada. Her mythology has ecology in it. So, you can actually take the mythology of goddess and use it just like, they have with patriarchal religion to put forth, ideas for society to live by. You can do the same thing with goddess mythology because, we learn that a society's mythology is what shapes the structure. And if you have a mythology where it's male-dominated with male authority, then what you get is a society that's male-dominated with male authority. So if we offset that with some mythology of the sacred feminine, again, we're going back to something that's much more balanced and healthy and whole.
Which would totally change the U.S.
Yeah,
because
it would.
It's never been that.
Imagine an eco-feminist party. Wouldn't that just be the most awesome thing,
Unfortunately, they probably wouldn't get anywhere in the immediate.
No, not in the immediate, but I mean...
Over time.
Well, the Green Party.
Yeah.
The Green Party, they would have some allegiance there, I think, to a certain extent.
Absolutely.
Anyone who's interested in women's rights, I think there would be, I honestly look at the goddess as sort of the poster girl for diversity. I use this metaphor of a big umbrella. And when you look at all the people across the globe that actually have a goddess in their spirituality or their religion, we could have a lot more people standing shoulder to shoulder in unity using the goddess metaphor, rather than this patriarchal idea, where you have, oh, my God is the only God, my God is the best God, our God is, the one, so, we're entitled to have crusades and fatwas and inquisitions and all of that. That's just, it's ridiculous. Everybody can stand under the goddess umbrella. Progressive Christians, looking at Mary and Mary Magdalene as a face of goddess. The Muslims have Fatima, they can stand under the umbrella. The Jews have Shekinah, they can stand under the umbrella. World peace, goddess. That's the eco-feminist platform.
What's kind of funny that I think that with the patriarchal society with the gods is that on Sundays when you go to worship God, it's the women who are supposed to stay home and make the meal for that night. They're not supposed to go out and have a peaceful day. The men are. So I'm kind of wondering with the feminists, would it switch or would it actually be equal?
No, I think we'd all go to church, temple, the Grove, wherever your church is. You'd all go together, and you wouldn't be separated either. There wouldn't be this artificial, line drawn in the sand between the men and the woman, because that's just man-made dogma.
Yeah.
You can always go to Taco Bell on your way home, anyway.
I never goes there. So you had posed a question when we were emailing earlier today, and I think it's a really good question to ask, especially on a show. Is advocating for a divine feminine normal?
Well, I think what we have now is abnormal, quite frankly. If you just look at it from this perspective, okay, who gives birth? Who creates? Okay? It's from the woman's body that life comes. Does it make sense that the creator of the world is a male? If you just look at it from that perspective, no. Now, I mean, we know that it takes the male and the female to procreate, but, ancient people didn't. And so that's why we think the earliest artifacts were female artifacts, and, because they only saw that it was woman that gave life. But, there's a precedent there, I think, to a certain extent, because, how it's like, this idea of life giver has been turned on its head, the creator of life. So, it should either be both or the female. Certainly not the male, because the male doesn't birth anything.
What's interesting with that is that there's actually a species of lizard where all of the males have died out, and it's only the females, and they procreate by stimulating each other and laying eggs that are exact replicas of themselves.
That's called parthenogenesis, I believe. Yeah. 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 Well, there's goddess mythology about virgin goddesses. That goddesses parthenogenically created. So I'm not an advocate for doing away with our wonderful men, but I think we need our fellas, especially the ones who are helping us bring forth these ideas, because there's a lot of them out there. There really are.
I know that we often we discuss a lot of different sex and gender presentations, and we talk about how men and women and the gamut in between can present themselves in a variety of ways, either in keeping with their genitals or not, in all of this, and we can discuss whether or not that's the way we should do that anyway. But with this philosophy, if you will, of a divine feminine, how would you approach talking to people who are intersex or people who are transgendered, and how could that be incorporated into
this whole idea? Well, I firmly believe that if they're here and that's their orientation, what's the big deal? God, goddess created them, and I don't know, I don't see it as an issue. I will say that, just throw this out, my personal opinion, transgendered folk, maybe they're even closer to achieving, to a certain extent, that masculine and feminine within, I don't know, I don't have a problem with it. My husband and I lived in New Orleans for a long time, and we were the only straight couple in a building of, gay and lesbian and transgendered people, and they were wonderful. And, I think once people get to know people who are not like themselves, it just becomes a non-issue. I don't know if that answers your question, but I don't, the religious right would think these people are an abomination. Goddess spirituality is much more open-minded, I think, much more, Goddess loves all her children kind of a thing, just like people say, well, God loves all his children. Well, you wouldn't know that by, how, the religious
how
right,
they get treated.
How they get treated, or, the Catholic Church, I call myself a recovering Catholic sometimes. Gay people are what, an abomination. Look at all the kids who've killed themselves because of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not very Jesus-like.
Yeah, that's about it. I'm with you there. And even with the battling religions, Jesus was Jewish.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and you know what? Honestly, I look at Jesus as maybe one of the first and earliest feminists. Jesus is more, what we think of as Jesus, and what we think of as what he really spoke about. The idea of a camel can get through the eye of a needle easier than a rich man. He walked with women. He would have probably been a terrorist, by our standards.
Just look at the beard.
I really do believe if, what Jesus walked and taught is so in sync with what we're talking about. It really is so much more than what you see passing for Christianity out there, the ugliness of Christianity. I'm not talking about the moderates and progressives who are out there, doing good work every day and helping people and living, walking their talk like Jesus suggested. I'm talking the divisive, ugly, hate-filled, religion that, that really hurts people and causes divisiveness and trying to take over our government.
Yeah.